This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 513 for the week of October 6th, 2024. Welcome back to Kanzenshuu, the podcast, an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site, Kanzenshuu. We cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of entertaining. As always here, great to be back with you. We got a whopper of a podcast. My name is Mike. You may see me around as VegettoEX. I am so glad that we can finally put something to rest before something new starts on tap this episode. Our full review of the superhero arc of the Dragon Ball Super manga. Joining us once again for a hat trick on manga reviews here is Ken, and then a special guest who has not read the Super manga before. Is it who you think it is? It's one of them. The three of us shall tackle the superhero arc, what we thought about it, including its exclusive prologue and epilogue chapters. And really, that's that. I say we just get on into it. I will hit you on the flip side of the manga review to chat about a couple newsworthy things. Obviously, it's a big week for Dragon Ball if you're listening live-ish here. And then we'll get out of here. So enjoy, and I'll see you on the flip. Well, we got to finish one kind of review before another TV series starts. So here we are, finally a little late, a few months late, but I'm going to say on time to record a review for the Dragon Ball Super manga superhero arc. Maybe finishing out the Dragon Ball Super manga. We don't know. Ken's face. Oh boy. So what I like to do here is for the, you know how reviews work here on Kanzenshuu. We do entire story arcs as a whole. We like to get the comprehensive view on it. And then maybe if you want another different take on it in smaller portions, we can talk about that later with you, Ken. But another thing that I like to do is have some consistent voices all the way through. So I remain with you. My name is Mike. Ken, you have joined us for Moro and Granola, at bare minimum, at least for the Super manga exclusive arcs, returning to Chat Superhero. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me once again.
And then I kind of like to have a new voice every once in a while on the arc reviews, reading the Dragon Ball Super manga for the first time. Meri.
Hello.
I started the process without telling you, while also having an ulterior motive, and that was watching the movie again, which we hadn't done in a while. And I was like, hey, we're going to be doing this thing. Would you be interested in doing it? But I kind of thought that you in particular would get some stuff out of this arc. So I'm glad. So it's going to be a smaller group here. We got the three of us. We are reviewing the superhero arc. Let's start with some basics about it before we get into the real discussion here. So the superhero arc spanned 16 chapters. It was serialized monthly over the course of December 2022 to March 2024. And remember how V-Jump works. That was the February 2023 to March 2024. There's a lot of 20s in there over in V-Jump Shueisha's magazine. This arc follows directly after two manga original and thus far exclusive story arcs. I already mentioned those, Moro and Granola. Now, the weird thing about this is the second of, let's say, 4 total movies that have been fully adapted into the manga, and that's debatable considering the slapdash nature of Battle of Gods. Check out last year's episodes 501 and 502 of our podcast here for our 10-year retrospective looking back at Battle of Gods. Ken, you were here for the manga portion of that, so
I totally blacked that
out. So a little more continuity there. So again, just a little context here. Long story short, Battle of Gods gets adapted across 4 chapters very quickly and without a lot of explanation. Resurrection F doesn't get adapted at all for a couple reasons. They said they wanted to, quote, charge ahead, unquote, to, quote, speed up excitement, end quote, for the TV series. And also, Resurrection F was quasi-adapted over 3 chapters earlier that same year in that same magazine, so it made sense not to do that. Then Broly gets mentioned and not fully adapted, though across the Granola arc and actually even a little into this arc, we get a decent amount of detail about that movie. And then here we are. We get a full adaptation of the superhero movie. So if it's not clear yet, this is an adaptation of the 2022 lot of twos there theatrical film Dragon Ball Super Superhero. That was a 3D animated film, really the first for the franchise here, continuing the Dragon Ball Super story. And so far, it's the latest we are in, let's call it the Super Interquel timeline before the 28th Tenkaichi Budokai that we see at the end of the original series, manga, and anime. So before we start diving into the content here of the manga, Meri, you don't know this. We like to do something cool here with these manga reviews, and that is I just steal something wholesale from a podcast you've actually heard a couple times now, the Just King Things podcast, where we do their patented, trademarked 5-sentence summary of this story arc. Now, Ken has been great and has done it a couple times here. So, Meri, I just want you to know that Ken's about to do it again for the superhero
no
arc.
pressure. No pressure.
Ken, 5 sentences. You are encouraged to use as much punctuation as possible and to verbalize said punctuation. So if you want to do semicolons, parentheses, I want all that.
Ooh,
I
how
want
about
to
some
hear all
sweet
that.
end dashes?
Yeah, I want the M dashes as well. Make sure you use them properly because I will be your copy editor on this as well.
My vocal M dashes.
Yeah.
I think I can do this one. I think
okay.
This one is easier than the other one.
All right, here we go. Sentence number 1 and onward into 5.
Okay, sentence number 1. Goten and Trunks, now older teenagers and taller, embark on a journey as Great Saiyaman X1 and X2, during which they encounter Dr. Hedo and his zombie alphas, or betas, or whatever they're called, and ultimately leading to his... What's the word for this? Where you imprisonment?
Incarceration.
Incarceration. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sentence 1.
Okay, sentence 1. That was a doozy right there.
Yeah, the prequel, there's not much to it.
Sure. Okay.
Sentence 2. Carmine and Magenta of the Red Pharmaceuticals Company, also known as the Red Ribbon Army, want to get Dr. Hedo to do his experiments under them. We got a lot to cram in these
We got 3 more. 3 more. You got 3 more.
Sentence 3. Piccolo discovers what's going on by encountering the Gammas, 2 androids built by Dr. Hedo, and goes about trying to build, let's say, a group or an army, a small army, to take them down and save the world. Sentence 3, we got a lot to cram into, or sentence 4, a lot to cram into this one now. Gohan, Piccolo's chief instrument here, is employed to battle against the Gammas and the newly formed Cell Max. And Gohan becomes Beast Gohan Beast, in addition to Piccolo's Orange Piccolo. We'll say that's sentence 4.
Okay.
Okay, sentence 5. Oh no. Ultimately, the Red Ribbon Army is defeated and Gamma 2 dies, which leads to Goku finding out about Gohan's transformation and an all-out brawl on Beerus's planet. I think
Congratulations, you got it. All right, that 5 sentences summarizing the whole thing. So let's get into it. The biggest thing here, we have an exclusive 3-chapter prologue and then a 3-chapter epilogue, unique to the manga. I do want to set the stage here a little bit. We got information on this right at the end, alongside chapter 103. So back in March of this year, Toyotaro had an interview that was posted on the official Dragon Ball site, timed with that chapter. And he says here, chapters 88 through 90 were a sort of prologue that I wanted to do, which I then drew after Toriyama Sensei revised it. Afterwards, chapters 91 through 100, you obviously get the main material from the movie. And then the epilogue in chapters 101 to 103 was based on a scenario that I asked Toriyama Sensei to write. I revised a few bits of dialogue and some story beats here and there, but for the most part, the content is as Toriyama Sensei envisioned it. And he says, I'm thankful to draw it, and, it's got a different feel from the movie. So right off the bat there, we get information that Toyotaro wanted to do a prologue, and so we did that. And then we get the information that the epilogue is basically by Toriyama through the eyes and pen of Toyotaro. So let's start with the prequel. I think we're going to spend the most amount of time on the prequel and the epilogue here. I do want to chat about the raw movie adaptation a little bit. There's some stuff to get into there. Ken, Toyble's back.
Did he ever leave?
full force.
I'm confused.
So, Ken, as someone who has most recently gone through Toyble's Dragon Ball, and I turn away and I bring out to the frame. Toible DBAF #1 After the Future. There's something in here, Ken, very notable from a long time ago that gets brought up again.
Right off the bat in AF, you have Goten as the successor to the Great Saiyaman.
I think there have been a few things. So for those who don't know, over on your podcast, do I say your podcast? I'm going to say your podcast. Randy's podcast? Yeah. You guys went through Toible's Dragon Ball AF, and we had done that a long time ago, so it was a nice fresh reminder for me to hear it through your eyes and ears as well. And there have been things along the way that it feels like Toyotaro has kind of been, I don't want to say alluding to or cribbing from, but this definitely feels like he really wanted to get some of that action in there from his AF days.
For sure, yeah. This whole time he's been pulling back from a wealth of ideas that he had during AF, and probably a lot that he never published.
Yeah.
Who knows, Moro might have been an AF thing.
So we get that. I mean, the unique thing here is we get Goten and Trunks as these Great Saiyaman in here, and that makes sense. I feel like that's a natural thing that lots of authors would have done and have done over the years if you're going to age up those characters. It's just particularly notable here, coming from Toyotaro and knowing that he had drawn something like that in the past. Meri, I want to go to you real quick. So coming in, we recently watched the movie, and you and I were saying, like, as the movie was playing, like, all that stuff was just so fucking funny. So we don't get to that right away here. We have this unique prologue with some characters that haven't had a whole lot of time to shine lately.
That's right. Goten and Trunks in high school.
What do you think of all this?
I freaking love it. I eat this stuff up with a spoon. It is just kind of funny. I guess that self-awareness of the kids have looked the same age for so long, and now they're suddenly old enough to be in high school. So I was trying to do the math. Like,
oh boy,
are they 14, 15, 15, 16? I guess it's irrelevant. I'm not going to harp too much on it.
Ken, timeline, do you have it in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me, but this is probably age 7, end of 782 into 783, so they're probably like 15, 16.
Yeah, okay, so that's right on there.
Yeah, I like the notes about the artwork, and like Toriyama says, don't draw them too muscly because they're still teenagers, so make them pretty lean. So being the resident Trunks nerd, I had to kind of check myself several times while rereading this, because I feel like sometimes the characterization of Trunks is off, and then I realized, wait, no, Meri, this is not future Trunks. This is, in fact, chibi Trunks. But there's still some things in it that I find don't track about his characterization.
Was one of them the fact that he's not good with computers, apparently?
That was one.
Okay.
Which is funny because he's Bulma's kids.
Okay, so I think what he's going for there is he did a couple pulls from Jocko over the course of this prequel. So we learned that apparently Bra is good with computers and good with technology and stuff, and that seems to be a direct nod to the fact that little Bulma in the final chapter of Jocko is good with technology, and I think he's just kind of going for that. The other nod to Jocko there is a mammal market. That's actually from Jocko, so we can tell exactly where they are, somewhere around East City for that material. I thought that was fun. We get to go inside there, the store there.
I had one way I was kind of justifying the inability to use technology, and that is Toyotaro trying to better connect the dots between this and what we know about these characters in GT, where Trunks is kind of an unwilling CEO.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of chalked that up to, okay, Meri, you're maybe reading into this too much, but that it made me feel better. I could sleep at night knowing that maybe that's what they were going for. The second thing that bugged me about Trunks was apparently, it was funny as hell. I thought it was really funny, but it just made no sense, was being scared of ghosts and ghouls and goblins when, like, as Gotenks had the super ghost kamikaze attack. It's like, I don't know, maybe it super traumatized him doing that attack, and now he really hates ghosts.
Maybe Goten's really into it. That was the Goten side of things. He was always really reluctant to do that.
Finally, some Goten in Gotenks.
Yeah, right.
It was good gagging, though. I liked his freaking out.
Ken, how'd you feel about the prologue overall?
I think I had forgotten the bit about Toyotaro saying that he wanted to write the prequel. Because the vibe I get from this is that it's a mix between it doesn't seem like he's enjoying writing it, and it doesn't feel like he has enough room. I feel like this is extremely crammed together. There's no space for these characters to breathe a little bit. Like if you look at the sudden dense panel count per page, it's a lot here versus, I'm currently reading Moro again, and we've got very few panels per page. A lot of it's action heavy, I know, but all of a sudden we switch over into this and we have walls of text everywhere, tons of panels, and it feels very cramped. Like maybe he only had 3 chapters to tell it before they wanted him to hurry up and get to superhero, but it just doesn't feel like this was fully maybe what he wanted to do, even if he wanted to do this idea.
We actually had an increased page count early on here too, as well. I think before we go back to the normal 45 for the pages. So I'm not sure what the deal was there. I kind of feel the same way where it's like, it starts off with like, okay, this is movie. This is cool. Original story. We got this. They're going to do it as a lead, like a direct lead in that shows you on the page here the events that lead up to what we hear about at the beginning of Superhero. And then, it just feels like it's kind of over. There's a lot to do there.
I loved it, though.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because I'm coming into it not having anything to compare it to, not having read the Super manga.
At all, yeah.
At all. But I love the characterization of, even Hedo. Mm-hmm. He kind of had more of a backstory and almost more sympathetic,
we get
and like
time
learning from all the different series of zombies and whatnot he was making.
I think the gag about the one like going home and them not feeling like pressing charges because I guess our kid came home. It's funny.
I have a stupid question. What's the deal with Mai? How the hell old is she?
Oh boy.
Is this like pre and post, like getting turned into children?
Yeah,
or
so this
is she from the future?
No, that's not
future. She seem to know the future Trunks. I'm so confused.
Right. So it is the Mai from Battle of Gods that has been turned into a child and has been here the whole time. So the Pilaf gang is working at Capsule Corporation. Apparently everyone does know who they all are and are fine with it. Like, it's better I keep my eye on you. They even say something like that. Like, it's better that Pilaf, you're here, so you're not off causing mischief. So they're fine with it. So this is that Mai, but also remember that the kid version of the Pilaf gang was around for the Goku Black Zamasu stuff. So that Mai did see the older future Trunks, who him from his timeline is in a relationship with the future Mai.
Oh, so that's not that Mai.
That's not that Mai.
That was my confusion. Okay.
This is real current timeline.
But she's like in her 40s, but age down, sort of back up.
Right. And so then there's kind of this 1.5-sided relationship going on.
Here's an easy way to think about it. In GT, Goku seemed like he acted different because he was back in a kid's body.
Yeah.
You know, he had a kid brain with kid stuff that goes on in kid brains, even though he was older. So just think of the same thing with Mai, is that yes, she's had 50 years of experience, but her mind is that of a teenager right now. So it's not as weird if you think about it that way.
And they also make a point to say, like, we don't want it to be weird that this girl is here, so like send her to school. I guess that's that. There are a couple things I want to call out here. The betas, it just feels like another run almost at the Caramel Men from Dr. Slump, but also, I mean, just the overall, it's Red Ribbon Army. We're going to do a series of androids, sure. Reference I wanted to call out there, the Rain Jack Dance Party. Almost certainly pulling from Toriyama. We have Mysterious Rain Jack, one of his original unpublished works, and then we get Pink, the Rain Jack story. So Toyotaro will throw deep cut Toriyama references any opportunity he gets. Meri, across from you over here up on the wall is a Toyotaro poster from Psycho Jump from the Goku Black arc. And I didn't notice until I looked at it super up close. But in the background on the buildings, he writes like Lady Red and Dub and Peter, and there's stuff in there. So
he knows.
Yeah.
I think you touched on something interesting with Dr. Slump.
Yeah.
I've only read one volume of Dr. Slump, so I can only speak to a certain extent. But these 3 chapters feel very Slumpian, or what I would envision Slump to feel like later on.
Say more, Ken. What else? What do you mean by that?
Constant comedic beats. I mean, even when there's action here, it's everything in it is a gag that's happening.
Gotcha. I like it. I had a really good time with it. I think it was very neat how it wasn't just completely standalone, how it directly leads into, like you said in the recap, Hedo going to jail, prison. And we kind of like, they use that as an opportunity to give us some of the context that, to our point earlier, Meri, that we loved in the car ride, that we don't get the entirety of, but then we get a different take on the car ride. Like, we almost get that outside view
Put it in,
of the car ride.
as a cop.
Yeah.
Sticking at the car.
So let's pause there. Is there anything else we want to say about the prologue here before we go to the normal movie adaptation?
Yeah, I love the fact that they do more to justify the name of the movie being about superheroes.
Sure, yeah.
Because, like, I don't know, I felt like the way it's titled has never been like earned. I'm like, okay, you like superheroes, like what?
That was
I don't
one
get
of
it.
the
And this
biggest-
has been a nice like way to kind of build up the I guess the interest of Hedo in superheroes, but also Goten and Trunks gallivanting
Yes.
as masked crusaders as well.
I was going to say, that was one of the biggest criticisms of the movie early on. It's like, how are you going to have a movie called Superhero and not have any great Saiyaman stuff whatsoever in it? And this feels like a reaction and a correction for that.
It's nice to get this at all, because I believe it was at New York Comic Con before Superhero the movie came out, where they were first talking about it. And then someone asked, where does this take place in relation to granola? Which is such like a Westerner type thinking of this kind of thing, to not just be able to enjoy it on its own, but I need it to fit.
Yeah.
And Toyotaro was like, well, let me just do my thread work and tie it in here. And that's nice to have.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. Let's get into the adaptation of the film proper itself. This spans chapters 91 to 100. We'll see how much time we spend on this material because, I mean, for the most part, it is a straight adaptation of the movie. We get some, to a thing I just said, we get some corrections / reactions to things from the movie itself. We have things expanded upon. So, Meri, let's go to that right now. We have the car ride going on, and apparently what's been happening this whole time is Cop Kuririn following along and having a battle with Hachimaru the whole time.
Yeah,
I thought that
great.
was great stuff.
It also does a good job of tying in all the ancillary characters that we see later on in the movie, and
Yeah.
it just shows like they were there all along behind the scenes.
Yeah,
being
yeah.
useful in their
Having
own
these
way.
conversations. I mean, it makes a lot more sense for why Goten and Trunks would show up, although it completely changes. You know, they don't just come in street clothes at the end. They come in a totally different, they're Great Saiyaman X1 and X2 versions here. But anything else about the early portion of the story here jumped out to you? Ken, seems like you got something.
Yeah, I mean, I've got tons of notes for this for the whole part where it covers the movie. I just wrote down like every difference.
Oh, yeah. I was kind of doing the
that
same
stood
thing.
out to me.
Yeah. What's some of these early ones?
We even go back further. We get the genesis of Pon training with Piccolo.
We do, because there's like a 6-month time skip in there.
Yeah, well, there's 3 months and then another 6 months. So we have like a 9-month time skip in
yeah.
this whole story.
Wow.
We get the Sunset City Police Department and Sergeant Nuts, who are already onto the Red Ribbon Army at this point,
Right.
which complicates some things later, I think. We get official, which is interesting. We get surnames for Red and Magenta.
Yeah.
Of course, Reborn is their last name, which is supposed to be not something that a lot of people have in the Dragon world.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder, where are they from the rest of the world, and maybe they're immigrants to this area?
And then this is something that doesn't even matter at all, but in the movie on Magenta's desk, you see
Yes.
pictures of Red and Violet, but where the picture of Violet is supposed to be on Magenta's desk in the manga, it's obscured. What does Toyotaro mean by that?
We kept the Gevo stuff, we kept the Vomi stuff in there, so that continues to be part of the thing. Toyotaro has drawn these characters before. He's a big fan of any Toriyama designs and this expanded lore. He'll always take the opportunity to include that stuff when he can. What else about the early portion of the story here? Jump out to anyone?
I don't consider this a cop-out whatsoever, but I was fascinated by like the almost frame for frame drawings of certain beats.
Yeah, there were. I think of Gamma 1 and 2 together, and he just like the little finger twirl.
Yes, that's
like,
the one. That was the one that jumped out
yeah,
at me the most.
we get an allusion to that. There's going to be something that I'll mention later that Toyotaro doesn't draw that he did in the later work to call back to that. But yeah, it's interesting because he basically has the whole thing storyboarded for him, as opposed to the two original arcs that he did the original stuff for. There's differences here and there, yeah, especially when he's including different characters or swapping up the surrounding context. But yeah, like for the most part, it's interesting here because he's just got it laid out for him over the good portion of a year.
Right. There were parts during this where I couldn't tell if his action was good or if I just knew what the action was supposed to be having watched the movie.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I didn't notice anything like we've talked about what are Toyotaro's follow-throughs versus the impact itself and the things that Toriyama would do to imply motion versus Toyotaro kind of like showing you every aspect of it along the way. But yeah, Ken, to your point, I felt the same way where it's just, as I just watched the movie right before reading all this, it just flew off the page for me.
There were also parts where a character would say something and then another character would react to that character saying it. And then I would try to envision Toriyama doing that as just one panel instead of two.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things where, the Toyotaro is showing more necessarily than he needs to, whereas Toriyama would also almost let you fill in the blanks in your own mind and just showing you the important beats of action.
Yeah. There are a couple really big things I want to get to, so I'm just going to kind of jump to them now. This is probably the one that everyone's waiting to have addressed. It's the meditation stuff. So
yes.
in the superhero movie, Goku makes a comment or reaction to Vegeta meditating, be like, "Why are you doing that?" And that stood out immediately to folks as Goku has done this himself. He understands the importance of meditation, and especially coming off the manga here. I mean, there's so much that has been important about that. And Toyotaro changes it. Almost, I don't want to say perfectly, but as good enough as he can with the material he's given here.
I think so. Right before we joined this call, I actually pulled the movie back up to specifically see what Vegeta said there. And the meaning of what he's saying in both versions is basically the same.
Yeah.
But it's the way that Toyotaro contextualizes it here far fits given the context of Moro and Gas having just happened.
Right, in which the manga does as well. Vegeta calls out by name Moro, Gas, and Frieza, which is helpful because, this is its own continuity and we know. And that's how we always, back in the movie, kind of, again, I'm going to keep saying this word, contextualize that scene. It's like, why would they be off training? What's going on? What's the importance of that? It's like, well, at bare minimum, they do have Broly, so that makes sense. But if you place this post Gas and Black Frieza, that's why they're there on this planet. And Toyotaro solidifies it. That is why they're there right now, to prep for that.
The movie does reference Frieza in that scene as well.
Yeah,
so,
I guess
Frieza's
that's true.
Still out there.
Yeah, he's still out there.
You don't know that he's Black Frieza.
I think that was a worthwhile adjustment to the manga here. Certainly helps that. Is there anything else to say about it?
It's this. He's really saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just easier to stomach this way.
Yeah. Goku almost says less and it's better for it.
Yeah.
Another change I wanted to address was the no additional Dragon Ball upgrades, because it's either has Dende already done it, or is this the upgrade from the Buu arc? Because why did he upgrade it again in the movie itself, Ken?
Exactly, yeah. So Piccolo asks, Shenlong can do that. And then Dende says, well, since the upgrade, I think. But it's not clear, is he talking about the original upgrade or did he do something else off panel? And it's really okay to me because I think him pouring that juice or whatever on the Shenlong model is so like, well, why are you doing this now if you could
have done it any
time?
time? Yeah, definitely.
It's best to just leave that alone.
Yeah. So I like that. One other change, and then we can go back around to other notes and reactions. Just Toyotaro throwing things in there that I think just helps. He has Piccolo acknowledge that Gohan's eyesight improves when he transforms. That really helps. The Gohan throwing his glasses off to the side. Like, it's not just that he looks cool doing it, but it's okay. I can see now after I transform.
Doesn't he also say it in the movie?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
The manga makes more of a point to show Gohan like squinting, like when he turns around.
Yes.
He's like, who said that?
That stuff's so funny. He's got such a dopey look on his face.
Yeah.
But
I'm like,
don't remember that from the movie.
sure it's in the movie as well. It's just like a throwaway line in the movie, but
maybe
in the manga it becomes a plot point.
Those were kind of like top three for me, and maybe one of them isn't even right, and I was just wrong about that. I guess there is one more change I do want to address, and that's the changing of Pon's flying for the first time. Whereas in the movie, it's kind of like big explosion running away, but for here, it was it to go grab the senzu?
I liked it.
It fits the medium better. I think in the movie, it's this big swelling moment of her just like bursting through the cloud, and you feel it. But here, Toyotaro doesn't have to worry about music being added or anything, and he can just make it more about the characters and having it work for the relationship between Gohan and Pan rather than being just a Pan moment.
Yeah. And of course, this is all in direct contradiction to the anime version, which has an entire dedicated episode to this happening for the first time with what is it, folks are sick and what's the wish gonna be? I've kind of like purged this from my memory. Do you remember the syntax or the context of that episode?
Yeah, I'm not watching Super again, so I have no idea.
Okay, so those are some of the big things. I want to chat about some of the bigger moments and how they came across in the manga. Meri, where do you want to go with just kind of like the regular movie portion of the manga here? Anything stick out to you that you liked, disliked?
Not having read any of the super manga up to this point, I was really going into the artwork with this mindset of, okay, is this going to be a glorified doujinshi or is this like the real deal?
Does this feel? Yeah.
And it's not Toriyama, but it was still friggin' fantastic to look at.
Yeah.
I think he nails certain big hit moments. I think there was one page in particular that like sent chills down my spine, which was Cell Max.
Yes.
Which just like in the movie, like that sent chills down my spine, but from an audio perspective.
Yeah, you can hear Wakamoto on the page.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool to have that double whammy between the two, types of media.
Yeah.
Just being so impactful in different ways.
There were a couple there. There's the full page Cell Max. There are a couple things that would span multiple pages, especially with Goten and Trunks when they're doing their like cyclone attacks and those kinds of things. I think those look super cool. I do want to call out his full page of Beast, which directly mirrors the same full page Super Saiyan 2 transformation from the original manga. Like it's so on the nose. It's more on the nose than even the line going through like the background kind of thing. But I guess, if this is the manga version of that, so you're going to do that exact same pull. I thought it looked great though. Like it looked good.
I went through this in full color. I think you
Oh,
guys
that's
did black
right. I
and
forgot
white.
about that. Yeah, we read just the standard black and white version. So
The big difference with the full color is that the mood is gone. They just don't pay attention to that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Like towards the last act of the movie, everything's kind of in cool colors because it's the cloud coverage.
Yeah, we
and
get the
everything.
rain and everything.
More
That was
muted.
so great in the movie.
Everything's bright and saturated in the full color, and so that the mood is just lifted straight out of it.
Interesting. Again, to some real big splashy stuff. I thought the Orange Piccolo looked fantastic on the page. When he gets the opportunity to do those real big, like spotlight drawings, I think he really pulls out all the stops for that stuff. There were a lot of little things here and there that I liked. We already mentioned it, but Gohan with the squinty eyes, just trying to figure out who
looking
he's
at
talking to.
people.
So fucking
Toyotaro's
hysterical.
really good at like funny facial expressions.
He is. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Like
at
people
that
doing
stuff.
like little pouts here and there.
Yeah.
things.
Well, one of those that I loved was when Pon sees Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan for the first time. She's like, ugh. I know that's in the movie too, but I thought it actually looked better in the manga. Like I felt her reaction even more on the page here.
I feel like there's a part in the manga where she sees Orange Piccolo before that, though.
Oh, maybe.
And so they changed that up a little bit here.
Okay.
Toyotaro remembers that the Oracle fish exists. And so they get to be in the movie.
I guess, can we talk about we already mentioned the meditation and stuff, but all the stuff surrounding Goku and Vegeta on that planet, that was kind of the worst part of the movie for a variety of reasons. For one thing, Masakazu Morita, his performance is so off as Whis during that scene in the movie. And unfortunately, I felt like I heard that on the page every time. His whoa to perform. I don't know what he was doing there that day, but I unfortunately felt like I heard it on the page here. But it also was the worst CG in the movie. I don't know if that was some of the earliest stuff they did or some of the latest stuff they did. So it was nice to see it, I guess, consistent with the rest of the movie here on the page. I don't know where I'm going with that. I guess I liked it. We got all the usual stuff with, Beerus and Chilai. That's still funny here. I like that he's got a type and it's a very basic type. It's just a good joke. It's not even really a joke. It's just funny.
I wonder if this is the last time they're going to have to retell Broly again.
Right. Okay. So we talked about that where Broly was not adapted, but I mean, it was kind of adapted in the Granola arc, and we had like most of that movie in there.
Yeah, we've had interstitials. We've had Goku telling the story to Merusu.
Yeah.
There's been, we had that 2-page spread between the Moro and Tournament of Power. And then we have here where we're going a little bit deeper. I think this is like 4 pages of them telling the Broly movie. But like how many, when is time number 4 going to happen? That's what I want.
And at this point, I guess we can never get it because they'll be like, well, we've already told you the story. So go watch the movie or read the anime manga on that.
We get to see Meron for the first time in a long time. And it's funny because they make a point of Goten and Trunks being aged up.
Yes.
Being like, oh, well, it's their Saiyan genetics and everything. But
what's her
Mai
deal?
has her sudden growth. Meron has her certain growth. Yeah. So it's just funny that all of a sudden everyone's popped up.
Did you think any which way, either of you? I think this was a contentious thing was when 18 is reacting to the call. She's like, yeah, I'm sure it's your boss. I don't know.
We don't know what their home life is really like, I guess. We don't get that field of vision into that aspect of their relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe, now that you're saying that, I think it actually did kind of rub me the wrong way. Like, oh, why is 18 being so not trusting?
Yeah. It's a weird line.
If I were to look for authorial intent here, it's that Kureden seems like he's really into his job.
Yes.
And maybe 18 is reading. Maybe he's not been home enough, maybe she's reading into that way.
All Kuredens are bad here, I guess.
We get this wonderful scene with all of with both of the Gammas and then Goten and Trunks, and they're wearing their superhero outfits. And then we get them all doing a pose together. And just to have what almost seems like Toyotaro said, I really want to put this little bit in here. Like, please, Toriyama sensei, let me put this in here. Because all of a sudden, the story just stops for a second while they do like 10, 12 pages of this additional little bit of all the superheroes together. And I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and we get the real specific mention of, and the scarves, and this comes from this, and is that he saw them. Like, you could have implied that anyway along the way, but to have it directly written in there was kind of nice too.
Well, in the movie, it's different because one of the Gammas, I think it's Gamma 1, existed before Hedo made any of the androids. So Hedo lifted that from someone else. And then there's also a guy who was probably the inspiration for Clean God in the manga.
Yeah. Overall, that was the movie, and it was a good version of the movie with a couple extra things here and there. Any other last thoughts on the normal movie part of the manga?
I just have a lot of like very minor notes here of little changes made, but overall, I think it starts off rough. Like I said, there's a lot of walls of text and tons of panels, but once the movie part of it got going, and Toyotaro was able to bring in Goten and Trunks in a different way and show why 18 was there and have everyone show up and then change the moment with Pon. And it made it all feel worth it in the end. But it took a long way for me to get to that point, even at the time, to feel like, I'm glad that we're retelling this movie that we all just watched.
Yeah, that was the tough thing about it, was the timing of it. As I have it laid out in front of me, like, it's only 10 chapters. Like, that, considering what we had for things like the Granola arc that felt like it was just going and going and going, and we get 2 flashback chapters in a row, to have a concise 10 chapters just tell this movie, I thought was pretty okay. Again, I don't know if I said this earlier, I don't think I did. I hadn't rewatched the movie. Well, that's not entirely true. When I got the Japanese big release when that came in, whenever Heath was here last, that's when that was. We kind of like spot checked the movie a little bit, just checking out like the HDR and stuff on some of those scenes.
That was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, okay, so I hadn't really looked at the movie at all since then. And we just watched it this last week. And I hadn't reread this manga until this week since its original serialization. So this was all newer to me. I don't know how to say that, but like it was really, really great to revisit this material. And it reminded me how important it is to have Toriyama's pen in the mix for these stories. We think back to some of the production info we've heard where he wanted it to just be a Piccolo movie, and they're like, you have to put Gohan in this movie. And just thinking of what could have been just a solo Piccolo movie, I still would have loved to have seen that, but ultimately I do like. I think I've come around on Beast. I think it's okay, and we'll chat more about that as we get into the epilogue here. But I had a pretty good time reading this. All right, here we go. The last material from Dragon Ball Super right now. We have 3 chapters 101, 102, 103, where a lot happens. And it's fascinating to me that this is like not just, some time passes. This is like, we pick right up where the movie ends and continue onward and learn what happens and what is the importance of this transformation. What does this mean in the grander scheme of things? How do other characters feel about this? I thought it was kind of misleading. I don't know where you thought it was going. Meri, I'm going to ask you, where that first epilogue chapter, it starts with Carmine and he's got his soldier alongside with him. Like, are we going to do like more Red Ribbon Army stuff? And that's not where it goes. So was that kind of like a bait and switch for
Yeah, I
you?
almost thought, like, is this going to be we're seeking revenge and we're going to comically fall into various pitfalls for the next couple chapters? Yes and no. They do get whisked away.
Well, I think it's interesting for you in particular, too, because I told you, like, oh, there are 3 chapters. And when this was coming out, we didn't know what it was going to be. We just... all of a sudden it kept going. We kind of had no idea what was going on. We didn't actually learn until it was over that it was over. So to know, like, hey, I'm sitting down to read 3 chapters and these are the final 3, I think that's a unique viewpoint there. There are a couple things I want to chat about. Ultimate gets named in universe here. I think
I couldn't tell what that was in reference to.
Okay, so Gohan's state, he goes Super Saiyan, goes Super Saiyan 2, and then he goes after his training / meditation thing with the Elder Kaioshin.
Yeah, wasn't that what was called Mystic in my fandom years?
Yeah.
So now it has a name. That's that.
So
is that what that is?
It's always been called Ultimate to a degree. Like, that's been in guidebooks, and it's in particular been in video games, but it was never directly given a capitalized formal name in the manga itself. So to finally have that happen in 2024 is really funny. And that's Toyotaro there.
Because he's the ultimate nerd. He's like, I get to turn this in canon.
Yeah.
I love that it's Goten and Trunks who give him the name.
Yeah. That's really funny.
And we find out Piccolo is the one who named Beast.
Everyone's just real bad with naming things. I think that's great. But that's just such fun writing. So again, remember, as we go into the epilogue here, this is something that Toyotaro asked Toriyama to write. And then Toyotaro takes it and does the actual manga here. So we get this continuation of Superhero direct from Toriyama. There's a lot in here that I guess we could mention, but a lot of it is also fighting at the same time too. The only thing that I guess I didn't like in here, and maybe that spoils it, I love these 3 chapters, was I think that the second failed fusion was a bit too much for me here, having the Fat Gotenks again.
I know, when I turned the page and I saw it was the incorrect one, I was like, no, I thought he was finally going to show a teenage Gotenks. Oh, no.
And he's been able to do it before over in Heroes. I have adult Gotenks on the page from Toyotaro. And to not get it over here in Super was a little heartbreaking.
I think it was just trolling people.
Yeah, well, I guess. But knowing that Toriyama wrote it, like, Toriyama always loves doing the wrong fusion. Like, God damn, man. All right.
It's probably safe to say that had Toriyama not passed, Super would still be going on. And we probably would have set up for a 3rd time for them to attempt that fusion, in which then it would have paid off.
Yeah.
In a nice rule of 3s type thing. So I'm going to give imaginary headcanon forgiveness to Toyotaro and Toriyama for that one.
Okay. I had such a good time with these chapters. I think just what everyone says to each other is so spot on. And I like the little pairings of fights. Like, okay, you guys go fight. No, wait, I want to fight. That all just felt right for where these characters are.
Everything feels right until the point where it's, I think Gohan and Broly are fighting, and then Vegeta gets itchy and he jumps in there, Goten and Trunks jump in, and it becomes an all-out brawl. And that is, to me, feels like the exact point where maybe there was a sudden rewrite to say we need to... I have no basis for saying any of this, but there's suddenly a shift in the feeling and the shift in the speed of the story. And it feels like, Toriyama had passed and people knew before they announced it.
Yeah.
And it feels like there was a very sudden rewrite to go into and end it, and then kind of give it what feels like an intentionally emotional ending at the end.
The timing, I mean, we know somewhat about Toriyama and his passing, but like, we don't really know. And I think people have read into some comments that he's made before where he's towards the end there. Was it the Lifetime Achievement Award where he said something, I don't know how long I'll be able to keep this up kind of stuff. So did he know that he was ill and something was happening? It's hard to say. And then looking at the timing of this chapter, so this came out towards the end of March. Toriyama had already passed at that point. But when you think about, all right, what is the production timeline on the manga? And they knew they were going to did they know they were going to do 3 chapters specifically? Was it going to be more than that? And then you get into we know that they do planning meetings for arcs as a whole. They had done this for Moro and Granola with Victory Uchida, who's the editor for Toyotaro, and Toriyama's involved as well. And we have no insider knowledge of, had they planned for more of this? Was this going to be a mini arc, kind of like the Mecha Frieza stuff that transitions into what comes next? We know Black Frieza's out there, and people are waiting for that Black Frieza arc, the same way they're waiting for that Planet Sadala arc in Super. Yeah, Ken, I don't know, man.
You and Ian had talked about on a previous podcast about the scheduling of necessarily when that kind of conversation, arc planning conversation might have happened.
Yeah.
And I believe the Granola one happened while they were still towards the end of Moro. So there's no doubt in my mind that if we ever get to Black Frieza, that some of the ideas and core concepts in that arc will still be from Toriyama. I don't think Daima is going to be the end all be all of ideas from Toriyama. I still think there has to still be more in the pipeline from him.
Yeah. And I guess that's the tough thing is it's hard to talk about these chapters and just straight up review them knowing what the situation was at the end here. And was this cut short? And then not knowing. I've been keeping up with V-Jump every month, and every issue of V-Jump in the very back, that's where they do like, here's the next issue preview, here's what's coming up next issue, if there are any corrections or errata or announcements they have to make. And there's little tiny text at the bottom, and it's still there every issue that says the Dragon Ball Super manga will be on hiatus next issue, and it still says that as recently as the November 2024 issue, which I'm looking at right here, which only came out a week ago. So it still says that, even in light of Daima starts within weeks here. We do know next issue of V-Jump that Toyotaro is going to do a one-shot for the new Divers arcade game that is replacing Heroes. It really feels like weird timing all around here, where there's no good time to continue Super.
Yeah, it sucks.
The only other thing I guess I want to call out towards the end of this stuff here is this is another issue that I think a lot of folks had, was when Pan gets named and Goku's like, Pan? I'm like, yeah, your granddaughter. That strikes me as a Toriyama line. I don't know why. Don't love it, but also the reading people have been like, does he think they're talking about bread? I don't know.
Well, we had, I think it was Jake came out and started picking apart what's being said in Japanese. And where Piccolo in the Viz translation says, oh, I'm scheduled to go pick up Pawn, isn't it more of a direct translation would be like, I'm going to go pick up Pawn, or I'm going to go get Pawn?
Yeah.
Which you could also just say as in, I'm going to go get bread, which to me, I think this sits better with me if I think Goku just had food on the mind first.
It's like a double joke.
Yeah. I think it just doesn't land, and that's okay. Doesn't all have to, but considering what else is going on in these chapters, we're going to get to that in some of the tweet feedback that we had here. But just seeing Ultra Instinct versus Beast is pretty fucking cool, man.
It is, yeah.
And I don't know I have no further insight or reaction to it other looks pretty fucking cool on the page. I just want to throw a couple more notes out here. Alongside the next couple issues of V-Jump after these, they did more of that interval special where Toyotaro would just do a drawing and then a little comment along the way. So we didn't know at the time what their plan was going to be. Not that we know now what their plan is going to be. So he drew Gevo, and he's just more of the like, hey, I love Toriyama stuff. But then alongside the Beast drawing in the July 2024 issue, he says, since unlike in the movie version, I didn't draw the scene of him smiling during the battle with Cell Max, I now drew him smiling fearlessly. Gohan really is pretty cool when he's enraged. So that was just one of those things like, yeah, he didn't draw every single thing that was in the movie, so he kind of took this opportunity to just do a cool ass drawing and have that smile from the scene there.
It's always good to have someone in Toyotaro's position who, you could say like, oh, I love Dragon Ball, I love Dragon Ball, I love Dragon Ball. But really, to people, who loves Dragon Ball more than Toyotaro in the kind of position that he's in? And I always feel good knowing that he's the guy in the role that he's in today.
He's like our avatar.
Yes.
You represent all of us fans.
You made your fan fiction reality.
Let's transition here to your thoughts, your feedback. So put out the tweet and the skeet as well. We got a whole bunch of responses. I actually don't think we can share them all, so maybe a little selective along the way here. Meri, can you get us started from Hugh Shackman?
All right, you gave me this one on purpose. Goten and Trunks Trunks parts were fun, but too Trunks focused for my taste. Epilogue was great.
Meri, rebuttal.
It's okay to be wrong. Conversely, I didn't like the epilogue.
Interesting.
I love the prologue because it was Trunks. So, there's so many great characters we all can enjoy.
Yeah, something for everyone here.
Yeah.
Le Skeptique says, I'd like more tweaks through the events of the movie, but it was really great to let the spotlight, lend maybe the spotlight to other characters, Trunks, Goten, Broly, and make use of Toyotaro's habits of deepening Dragon Ball lore to explain more things like the Beast form. I really like the color pages too. Yeah, so Ken, you read it, the full color version, but there are actual color pages from the original serialization, and I thought those look great. Toyotaro stuff generally does pretty well in color.
Nathan writes in and says, it was okay. I wish we could have gotten a new arc instead of a retelling that took like over a year to finish, especially since the previous arc ended with Black Frieza.
Yeah, I mean, that is the weird thing about the timing here was that the movie had already been out, and then we get to the end of this, and we're like, all right, we've had 2 original arcs. What could possibly come next? They've left it on such like an obvious cliffhanger, and then to not get it was interesting.
From Zoltier, I think it was pretty good. The prologue and epilogue were both a little too long, and the first half of the adaptation dragged a bit, but I still liked it a lot overall. Felt like a pretty solid arc that flowed nicely off the previous one and into Goku training Pon.
Yeah, the smile there at the end when he does the block and they both are like, yeah.
That was cute.
That stuff's good. Let's see. Michael, not me, says, the additions added to the story, mostly, especially the epilogue, were really great. IMO. Still didn't love the slow build while retelling leading up into it, but the ending made it worth it. IMO. So we got a lot of folks really thinking about the prologue and the epilogue here, but that makes sense.
Gabby writes in, what's up, Gabby? Kind of unnecessary, but inoffensive. It did make me notice that Gohan feels a lot less interesting in the manga, though. I think because he's generally less dorky and comedic.
Maybe there's something about Nozawa's performance. I really love Gohan. Any scene where he's at his house and people are bugging him at the window, like that stuff is fantastic. Whether it's Piccolo or the pharmaceutical folks.
I know you said Toriyama wanted to make this a solely Piccolo movie, and they said, no, you have to add in Gohan. But I feel still in my heart of hearts that this really is a Piccolo movie.
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Gohan is just a loaded rifle.
Yeah. Almost literally at the end there. Oh, we didn't really talk about that. Can we talk about the Makanko Zappo at the end?
Oh, yeah. Fucking dope.
It looks great on the page here, too.
Yeah.
Big stuff. Big stuff. Good. Who up to? Meri, I think you.
Yeah, Angelo Exalt writes, it's not great, but fun with some very awesome highlights. The epilogue is great for so many reasons as well. I'm wondering why I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
I guess because I don't like fight.
Yeah.
But it's got some cute character moments like, I want to see your skills. That just seems so basic ass though. Show me your form. Yawn.
And then we get the strange almost shipping between Piccolo and that teacher.
Yeah. Let's see. Jazzy Jin. This may be a controversial opinion, but I loved it. I don't think that's particularly controversial, at least among this crew. I thought the changes were great and elevated the story. It makes me wish that the manga adapted all of Super Resurrection F from Broly, so the manga could have been a complete product. Yeah, that's been something we've had an issue with, or at least discussed since the literal beginning of this manga and the TV series, is that there's no singular Dragon Ball Super that you can consume. At some point, you have to watch a movie or read a manga or watch the TV series or some combination thereof. And then depending on what you're reading or watching, you may get 2 different Gokus entirely.
Smash Bro writes in and says, this arc reminds me why Super's multiple continuities thing sucks. By Moro, Gohan was already knew how to handle things with Goku with Goku gone at the time, so saying what he says in this arc feels odd. By the way, the Saiyaman subplot from Super's anime should have been given to Trunks and Goten.
There are some things in there. Ken, I guess we didn't mention this, but the Piccolo growing big thing, yeah, that's something that probably could have been written around a little bit here.
Yeah, it's still like a couple of years since Moro by this point. There's a lot of time that seems to pass between Moro, Granola, and where we are here in Superhero. So maybe it's been 2 years since he got big, or since they talked about 7-3 getting big.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll let that pass.
I don't know. I don't love it. Let's see. Lunar Tom, both on Twitter and Bisky, I see you. I'll say that I enjoyed it more than the film. The slight bit of added continuity with Goten and Trunks made the experience flow better for me. Also, I'll literally take anything between Goten and Trunks.
I would love to get back to GT Goten characterization as soon as possible.
Playboy?
That's the best Goten. Yes.
Talk about a leap. I want to see what turns him into that. All right, Bus writes in, prologue contains some of my favorite chapters of Super. Just really fun, character-driven stuff. Wasn't interested in the retelling, but it was well drawn, and I liked Crinoline time. Epilogue felt like a fan service reward for sitting through the retelling in the best way.
Second says, prologue is okay. It reminds me of Toriyama's Saiyaman arc, where I believe an eventual adaptation will make me like it more. The epilogue, though, that was Toriyama and Toyotaro firing off at full blast. Adored every bit of the plot in Beerus' Planet. Totally the DB Super I like.
We're getting just a lot here of, like we said earlier, there's just something for everyone in all these different parts of this arc in particular. You've got all the great character moments, just dialogue between each other. You've got these big flashy fight moments. I think this is peak Dragon Ball. Let's see. What do we got here? We got Jacob. Hey, friend of the site, Jacob. I think it reads well overall. And if you haven't watched Superhero in a bit, then the reread of the material is less cumbersome. I like the prologue chapters a lot and the blending of Goten and Trunks into the superhero story. I really liked the last chapters.
Founder X9 says, I got to see a post-granola arc / after time skip to Superhero Goku uses newest version of Ultra Instinct in a sparring match against Gohan's new form. I fucking loved it.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the end of the Granola arc in which Goku is not using the silver-formed Ultra Instinct anymore.
Well, go back to our Granola arc review. I don't know if we touched on it then. I can't remember. It's been a long time. So, hey, that was the superhero arc of the Dragon Ball Super manga. And this is, again, the latest point in the interquel, because who knows officially what Daima is going to be and what continuity will be in the future of this franchise. I look forward to what the future may hold. If this were to be the last of Super, Meri, as someone who watched the TV series, didn't read the manga, I guess I got a couple questions for you. Mm-hmm. Have we convinced you to read Moro?
No.
Damn it.
I got Trunks. If Trunks isn't in it, I don't care. And it ended on such a happy note, too. As much as I was just dunking on the epilogue, it did end super cute.
Yeah.
So I'd be content, like this being a thing in isolation for me. I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed the superhero movie, so reading a manga adaptation was super cool to go back to. I don't know that I want to read original content because it's just going to seem like a glorified fanfic.
Interesting. Even if we know that Toriyama did the story for it?
I could be swayed.
All right.
Is it actually good?
Moro is the best of Dragon Ball Super.
Okay. That's a big fat maybe then.
Before I go to Ken, Meri, my other question for you here is, I actually don't remember if maybe you read like the Battle of Gods stuff for the Super manga. You probably don't remember either. But let's say that you haven't read any of the Super manga for all intents and purposes. What did you think of Toritaro here?
Oh, it's great. Very, very good stand-in for Toriyama. I was maybe 95% convinced most of the time.
I was going to say, if you didn't know, how long would it take you to figure it out?
Pretty quickly, because over reliance on, not shading, that's not the right word, screen tones maybe.
Yeah.
Which is like Toriyama's is mostly black and white stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it take me maybe a chapter or two.
But you had a good time, and especially
very good time.
I think removed a bit of time away from having seen the movie, and especially not watched Super in a long time. It was probably a good time reading this manga.
Very, very good time.
Good to hear.
I'm glad I did it.
Good. Ken, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's a slow start for me. I'm not totally sold on the prequel stuff. I think it needed more room. But as it got going, Toyotaro started adding in lots of really fun stuff to just spruce up the movie. And then the ending, I'm with it all up until like the last 8 pages, in which I feel something my heart of hearts, something happened.
Yeah. I had a really good time with this. Again, it's been a while since I had seen the movie, so just jumping back into this, and especially where we are in history, having lost Toriyama this year and watching something that we know was from his pen. And yeah, had editorial influence and shifted things, but that's everything in modern Dragon Ball history. This felt like the most pure Toriyama kind of story, though, where he just wanted to have little character moments. You think that Piccolo just holding up the little cell phone thing, the gag about getting all the plushies, like that's original to the movie, but that's so funny. Like that's the kind of stuff. I love that as much as I love Ultra Instinct versus Beast. Like those two things are just peak Dragon Ball in my mind. I love the little character moments, and I'm not above saying I love just throw some spiky haired guys fighting each other. Like that shit rocks, man. It's so cool. So everything else about this, I love that. Like I'm coming around to loving the random transformations, just being like, yeah, well, I threw it a bit extra. I love Shenlong just like helping out Piccolo a little bit here. Like that stuff's funny. I'm coming around on Beast, which I never thought I would. I don't know if it's because it's been some time. But I had such a good time rewatching the movie, and I had an equally great time rereading this arc of the manga.
Do you think being able to stomach Beast is due in part at all to Whis saying that this seems like this is specific to Gohan?
That doesn't hurt.
That was a nice little line.
Yeah, because we've had since the beginning, like Gohan is different from these others. He's got the human in him. And it's interesting that that doesn't seem to extend to Trunks or Goten in some ways. But I mean, that's just their upbringing and their time in the Dragon World history. There's just something about Gohan. I like that. That's helpful. Yeah. I think maybe his hair is just a little shorter in the manga too. It's not as out of control as it was in the movie, which looks like some AF shit. Yeah, I had a really good time. Like, I'm bummed. Like, I had such an awesome time with Moro. I kind of came around on Granola. I'd have to reread it. And I had a really good time here, and to know like what's going on. And then there's, of course, the Akio Ioku situation of going off and just making his own company. But then at the same time, knowing he pushed through a Sandland adaptation, he's like, fuck AI. Like maybe Ioku is actually King Ioku all along. So I want to see what he can do, but God damn it. I just want Moro in a video game. I guess that's where it all comes back to. I just want Moro in a video game.
No Moro, no buy.
I don't know. I got it pre-ordered.
I will buy it.
Meri, thank you so much for reading the super manga.
Thank you for the gentle nudge
to
have me read it.
I'm glad you had a good time.
It's good to revisit these guys.
Are you going to look at your superhero Trunks figure any differently?
No.
But you can. What I'm getting at is you're going to look at him and be like, oh, he just wants to be a superhero, or is he just the dude in the jacket now?
No, he's still just the dude in the jacket.
Okay. Ken, not like I didn't just spend 2 hours with you last night too, but I had a wonderful time chatting with you. Always love this. I love having a consistent voice along the way for these arc reviews, and I'm bummed that we don't know what the future will hold for the continuation of the Dragon Ball Super manga review.
All I can say is that if they put Toyotaro on a Daima retelling, we riot.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What's the over-under on that?
I don't think so.
I hope not.
Especially because, and I know this is not an original thought to me, but Naho Uishi is right there. Like, that's her wheelhouse is SD versions of these characters. She's just been shoved over. She's not even in the magazine anymore. But Ken, people can hear you every other week on another podcast. Look, there are very few other things I can stomach listening to or reading for Dragon Ball content out there. And I want you to know that I do love listening to you guys.
Well, thank you. Oh, yeah. The name of the podcast is We Got a Podcast.
There are still some episodes I haven't listened to.
Yeah, you got a lot of GT ones that you've skipped.
Because
you don't want it to cloud you editing all those episodes you recorded a long time ago.
Exactly.
Right.
Which do exist on a hard drive. Absolutely.
It's fact.
I just got to dig out.
In Canada.
Yeah.
My girlfriend.
You don't know her. She goes to high school in Canada. So Ken, We Got a Podcast comes out every other week. There's audio, there's video. That's good. Love it. Is there like a central, I guess I don't know the answer to this. Is there like a central location?
No. I mean, everything's on the Twitter. You can find it through there. The YouTube, Spotify. We're on everything, but we mostly pay attention to what we interact with on YouTube and Spotify.
And you put extra effort into that YouTube version. I think you should have 1 million more views than you do.
Well, it's not, you don't edit based on how many views you get. You edit based on the product you want to make. And the product I want to make is something that only gets 300 views, and that's how it is.
I say that as someone who only listens to podcasts audio-wise, but every time I see a sample, I'm like, oh, it's a shame I don't watch.
It's really easy and nice to correct myself in video form. And I could just be like, no, actually, this was the panel I was talking about, not the other one.
All right. Other than that, y'all can find us most weekends at grabyournearest.com.
True.
Where we will stream Mario Kart. Ken, you're out this coming weekend, I think is that what you said?
I'll be out for a while.
We got some, I don't know, maybe we have some time coming off. We'll figure that schedule out. But if not, you can always check out the VODs or the highlights occasionally on Twitter. And by occasionally, I mean every week. I still do that. So thank you, Meri. Thank you, Ken. This has been the review of the superhero arc of the Dragon Ball Super manga. We will see where we go. Thanks once again. And as always, to Ken, be sure to check him out every other week over on We Got a Podcast and most Saturday nights with me over on grabyournearest.com, apparently. So, hey, it's a big week for Dragon Ball. As I'm recording this and putting this episode out, we're about a week away from an entirely new television series. Dragon Ball Daima starts this week. Since the last episode when I talked with AJ, we actually do have streaming information for this show. We're basically all going to be able to watch it. That is incredible. Hey, on top of that, new video game Sparking Zero is out this week too. So obviously there will be a lot to chat about with those things in the coming weeks and months. As I am recording this bookend to the podcast, Psycho Jump, Shueisha's monthly magazine for children, is just hitting shelves in Japan, and in it, the final chapter of Super Dragon Ball Heroes Meteor Mission by Yoshitaka Nagayama is published therein. That has finally come to a close. Just after Avatars by Yuji Kasai and the Sandland colorization, those also came to a close last month in the magazine. Truly, truly, truly end of an era here. Remains to be seen because I don't actually have the magazine in my hands right now, so all I can do is go off of what the Dragon Ball official site just put up as a quick tease of the magazine. I'll probably be here tomorrow. Of course, that's how it works out. So I don't know what maybe other special announcements may be listed in there. We do know that over in V-Jump, Toyotaro, hey, remember that guy? Is doing a Divers one-shot. Remember, Divers is taking the place of Heroes. It is the new card-based arcade game coming for the franchise. He's doing a one-shot of that in V-Jump. And then over in the Super Dragon Ball Heroes Heroes Memories guidebook that just came out a short time ago, there's a little blurb under Yuji Kasai's comment about Heroes that says they're doing a Divers manga. So, again, remains to be seen. What will we get for future adaptations of a storyline in that game's here? We don't even know. What will the story be in Divers? Will it be a multi-year ongoing narrative like Heroes gave us? So be on the lookout for all that. We'll cover all that news on the site. We'll chat about it here on the podcast. So with that, I think I will get out of here. Got a couple thanks to get out there. In addition to Ken for joining us on the show, a big thanks to Jonathan Lack for chatting with us a couple years ago. The segment he wrote didn't quite end up fitting into his dissertation, but he has published that online for free. So Jonathan chatted with Heath and myself here from Kanzenshuu for an article about anime fandom, online culture, but really the documentation side of things and what drives us and the why and the how and all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate being asked about that. No one ever asks about that. So thank you, Jonathan. Much appreciated. He put up that article for free on his site, so I will link that in the show notes. And then speaking of upcoming writing on Dragon Ball, hey, special thanks to Vincent for an early glimpse. Stay tuned on what that is. So with that all said, www.kanzenshuu.com. That is kanzenshuu.com. My name has been Mike. I will see you online this next week, Chat about a whole lot of stuff. Looking forward to it, and I will see you next time on the podcast as well. Thank you. Goodbye.